honest miles an hour. Clocked. It run about 106, 7.
You've won a few races, haven't you?
Oh, 1 or 2.
James Dean died believing his masterpiece was ruined. Before the car crash, he told friends the studio butchered his final scene. Nobody knew what he meant until now. Archive researchers found Ray's work print from June 1955. The ending was completely different. Plato didn't just die. He said something first, something that explained everything about his obsession with Jim. The censors cut it. The studio buried it. But the film survived. The truth about what really happened to Jim, Judy, and Plato will blow your mind. In 1946, Warner Brothers bought the rights to a book called Rebel Without a Cause, a best-selling psychology text written by Robert Lindner. But for 8 long years, no one touched it. Then director Nicholas Ray found it. He wasn't interested in the book's adult-centered story. What caught his eye was a deeper idea. Maybe rebellion wasn't evil. It was just a desperate search for identity. Ray scribbled a note to himself. Move the story to suburbia. Keep the anguish. He imagined a teenage boy, drunk and broken, curling up beside a discarded toy monkey. That single image, to him, meant innocence lost. And just like that, the title was saved. But the book itself was left behind. The first version of the story was raw and brutal. Ray called it The Blind Run. It was only 17 pages long, but it read like a horror show. The opening was a man on fire running straight at the camera. Soon after, a girl is stripped and whipped by her classmates. A boy is forced to lick blood from a knife. These weren't just ideas. Ray had collected real court records from Los Angeles and filled a folder labeled L.A. Kids. The studio hated it. They shelved the script. That changed in 1953, when Ray brought in a young writer named Stuart Stern. Stern had just graduated from the Iowa Writers' Workshop. He threw out the violent parts, but kept the emotional core. He built a story about family tension and renamed the lead character Jim Stark. The name came from a real boy Stern had met inside Juvenile Hall. For the dialogue, Stern dug into surveys that showed over 2/3 of American parents feared the youth of the time. That fear gave the studio something to think about, but they still needed a reason to fund it. So Ray put together a 22 minute slideshow and called it Juvenile Terror, the real box office menace. It was packed with headlines screaming about teen crime. In just 1 year, a single news series had appeared in more than 2,000 newspapers. Ray pointed at that and said, "This is marketing we don't even have to pay for." He asked for $1.5 million to make the movie, 3 times the usual budget for a youth drama. The gamble worked. The studio gave the green light. Then, just weeks later, James Dean got an Oscar nomination. That locked in the release for fall 1955. Ray kept going back to the Griffith Observatory while working on the script. He became obsessed with the Foucault pendulum and the zodiac ceiling. He heard a guide say that if the entire history of Earth was crammed into one day, humans would only exist for the last second. That line made it into the film's opening scene. Ray wanted audiences to see these teens not as rebels, but as tiny lives spinning in an uncaring universe. He told the cameraman to shoot wide and make sure the kids always looked small against the cosmos. On the page, he wrote, "Cosmos versus kitchen." It was his way of showing how their cramped homes could never contain their inner storms. When the censors read the November 1954 draft, they panicked. The script, they said, blamed parents for everything, and that crossed a line. Jim's dad wore an apron, and that was called humiliating to the masculine ideal. Plato had male pin-ups in his bedroom, and that sparked a warning about obvious homosexual suggestion. Ray refused to back down. He cut one line, but left the rest. The studio leaned into the controversy. When the film opened at the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles, the box office exploded. Local censors begged for the ads to be toned down. Critics couldn't look away. The teens on screen, they admitted, felt terrifyingly real. James Dean almost didn't play Jim Stark. Warner Brothers wanted Tab Hunter, but after watching a rough cut of East of Eden, Ray insisted on Dean. He had just 11 free days before starting Giant. Those days only became available because Elizabeth Taylor had discovered she was pregnant and delayed filming. That twist of fate opened the door. Ray let Dean improvise. Nearly 40% of his dialogue wasn't in the script. His famous outburst, "You're tearing me apart," came straight from his gut. Studio records show they spent nearly $100,000 extra on retakes because Dean demanded every scene be filmed twice, once scripted, once raw. Natalie Wood got the part of Judy in a wild, almost reckless way. At 1 in the morning, she and Dennis Hopper crashed their Jaguar. She was labeled a juvenile delinquent in the police report. Still at the hospital, she called Ray and screamed, "Now do I get the part?" That morning, Ray sent a telegram to Warner Brothers. "Natalie Wood only. She bled for Judy." When they tested her for real, her heart rate doubled during emotional scenes. It was proof. The studio agreed. Sal Mineo became Plato after one strange test. Ray timed how long each actor could lock eyes with Dean. Most broke away in seconds. Sal held the gaze for 6. Ray made a note. Subtext secured. Plato's feelings would never be spoken, but they would be there. Ray even had Sal's gun holster stitched a little higher than normal, so the grip rested near his heart. It was a quiet visual cue. The censors missed it. To cast Jim's parents, Ray pushed things further. He had actors improvise a family dinner with Dean. One man, Jim Backus, got so into it, he threw a real plate that shattered near Dean's feet. Ann Doran slapped Dean seconds later. None of it was scripted. The sound of the plate breaking was the loudest ever recorded in a test. The chaos was real. Ray had found the parents. Dean also got a few friends into the film. He asked for 3 small roles for fellow actors' studio members. Ray agreed. One day, he told the group to stage a full-on brawl in the parking lot. The cameras weren't even rolling. He just wanted them to get bruised. 7 hot rods were wrecked. 2 actors ended up in urgent care. But the next day, those fresh cuts matched the scenes perfectly. It saved makeup time and fueled the tension that ended up crackling on screen. The studio gave Nicholas Ray just 24 days to shoot the film. A small budget, a tight deadline. It was a B-movie schedule from the start. Cameras rolled on March 25, 1955. Everything was planned for black and white. But then, Jack Warner saw the first footage. He changed his mind overnight. He wanted color. He wanted a widescreen. He wanted CinemaScope. That meant tearing down and rebuilding entire sets. It meant adjusting every shot to the wider frame. The crew scrambled. Film stock vanished twice as fast as expected. Dean, always improvising, often kept them working past midnight. Even with the chaos, Ray wrapped it up in just 31 days. That was only a week behind schedule. The final cost went up to $173 million. On set, things weren't always smooth. In the early days, the cast bonded deeply. Ray held pre-dawn sessions in an empty classroom. They'd sit in the dark and share childhood memories until someone cried. It built trust. It made them raw. But then things shifted. One day, Dean insisted they shoot a silent glance down a hallway, 27 times. He said it wasn't truthful yet. That week alone, the crew logged 54 hours of overtime. The assistant director noticed their pace dropped. Even Natalie Wood joked in her diary, that Jimmy might kill the movie before they even got to the cliff scene. Still, Ray let him do it. Then came the Chicky Run. They filmed it on a ranch in Calabasas. The cars weren't just props. They were real, salvaged from junkyards and rigged to slide safely when drivers jumped. But the danger was real too. The stunt list shows speeds hitting 80 miles per hour. Corey Allen, who played Buzz, did his own jump at 23 mph. He landed hard and sprained his wrist. They had to pause filming for 4 hours. Just after the final shot, a distant orange glow lit up the sky. It was a real atomic test, all the way in Nevada. The crew fell silent as they watched the eerie dome rise behind the hills. Safety inspectors later called the whole thing reckless. Ray disagreed. He said danger gave the shot a heartbeat you couldn't fake. The studio agreed. They didn't cut a single frame. Inside the observatory, the planetarium wasn't real. It was built on a soundstage. But when you watched the scene, it felt like the universe was about to collapse. Cinematographer Ernest Haller lit the ceiling with hidden neon tubes, 4,000 feet of them. As the narrator spoke of the Earth's destruction, the stars turned blood red. Dean's face caught the light just as the line hit. The Earth will be pulverized. During a test screening, people gasped. That one shot did something no teen movie had ever done. It made loneliness look cosmic. Studio execs watched it twice and told the trailer team to lead with it. The knife fight was just over a minute long, but it left real scars. Ray replaced the fake knives with real steel, dull, but still sharp enough to reflect light. On take 3, Allen's blade slipped. It sliced Dean's ear. Blood ran down his shirt. He didn't stop. He told the crew to keep rolling so the pain would read on camera. The lawyers freaked out. They wanted the footage destroyed. Ray didn't listen. He cut out the worst language, kept the blood, and made sure it stayed in the final cut. You can still see the scab 2 scenes later. Continuity didn't matter. What mattered was truth. And in that moment, teen rebellion had drawn real blood. Before Dean's death, the studio wasn't even sure they had a hit. They planned to release it quietly the next year. But now, they saw a chance. They doubled the ad budget and went all in. Subway posters screamed, "Live fast, die young." Opening weekend blew away expectations. Just 3 New York theaters pulled in over $116,000. Other cities added 2 a.m. showings. Tickets still sold out. Variety said it best. This was the first movie that turned drive-ins into teenage town halls. Even critics who disliked the script admitted the crowds were electric. Within 10 days, the film had already earned back everything it cost. The momentum didn't stop in America. Just 3 months later, it hit Europe. London, Paris, and Rome saw packed theaters. In England, one cinema sold 185,000 tickets in a single month. In France, critics called Dean the thunderstruck angel. In Italy, teenagers started racing their motorcycles by the canals, copying scenes from the movie. One city even banned midnight showings. In West Germany, a youth magazine put Dean on the cover. Most readers said he represented their whole generation. Somehow, this American film had become a voice for restless youth across the world. The studio leaned hard into the tragedy. The movie posters were bold. Dean staring upward, cigarette in mouth, with the line, "He lived and died by his own rules." Some cities banned the image. Too dark, they said. But fans wanted more. Over 50,000 posters were sold to the public. Warner Brothers even sent theaters memorial kits with black streamers. Some critics were appalled. They accused the studio of cashing in on a corpse. But it worked. Surveys showed most teens came to see the movie because Dean had died. The myth was already forming. And then there was the chaos outside the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles. It was October 29th. The last show had sold out. 500 teenagers, furious they couldn't get in, started throwing coins at the glass doors. Some knocked over parking meters. They chanted, "Let us in, Jim Wood." Police arrested 42 of them. One officer even admitted they acted exactly like the kids in the film. The newspapers called it a Bobby Soxer riot. The studio worried it might hurt the movie. But the opposite happened. The premiere became legendary. The protest became part of the story. It was like the movie had spilled out onto the streets. It was almost sunset on September 30th, 1955. James Dean was behind the wheel of his silver Porsche 550 Spider. The car already had a name, Little Bastard, and the number 130 painted on it. At a lonely intersection on Highway 46, his car collided head-on with a 1950 Ford, driven by a man named Donald Turnipseed. Just under an hour later, Dean was pronounced dead. His body had been crushed, his neck snapped, his jaw shattered. The crash ended his life in seconds. The wrecked Porsche was sold for parts, and that's when things started getting strange. Dr. William Eschred took the engine and installed it in his Lotus. During a race the next year, he lost control and crashed. He made it out alive. But another racer, Dr. Troy McHenry, wasn't as lucky. He used some of the suspension parts from Dean's car, lost control, hit a tree, and died on the spot. That wasn't the end of it. Other pieces of the car found their way into other vehicles, and those cars crashed too. It didn't help that in 1960, what was left of Little Bastard mysteriously vanished while being transported for a safety exhibit. After that, the legend of the curse took off. People didn't care what the experts said. The dates lined up too perfectly. Too many wrecks, too many injuries, and that missing car? It made it all feel haunted. Right after the crash, the question everyone asked was the same. How fast was Dean going? One witness said the Porsche flew past them at 85 miles per hour just minutes before the crash. But when Corporal Ronald Nelson arrived and examined the road, the skid marks suggested a slower speed, maybe 55. That's what the official inquest went with. Still, the 30-mile gap became a debate no one could settle. The autopsy was brutal. A broken neck, broken arms, shattered jaw, massive internal damage. The doctor said Dean died instantly. That one line, fractured neck, dead on arrival, got printed everywhere. It became part of his myth. Some believed he was just reckless. Others insisted the crash wasn't his fault. Either way, people kept going over the last few minutes of his life, over and over, trying to make sense of something that refused to explain itself. Then came the tabloids. They didn't just focus on the crash. They brought up the rumors about Dean's sexuality, about things the studio never talked about publicly. Years earlier, he'd lived with a radio director, Rogers Brackett. That relationship had already raised eyebrows, but after Dean's death, everything spilled out. One tabloid headline screamed, "Rebel without morals." It tied his speed to his personal life. It made his death look like rebellion instead of tragedy. By the 70s, biographers openly wrote about his male lovers. Some called him a symbol of gay resistance. In San Francisco, a leather bar even built a statue of him. The line between fact and myth vanished. His death wasn't just an accident anymore. It became something bigger, something cultural, something raw. Meanwhile, another scandal was brewing behind the scenes of Rebel Without a Cause. Natalie Wood was 16. Nicholas Ray, her director, was 43. She started sneaking off set at night to meet him at the Chateau Marmont in Bungalow 2. Studio memos show security caught her leaving after curfew more than once. One day, Ray's wife stormed onto the set and slapped him in front of the crew. When gossip columnist Hedda Hopper started asking questions, the studio panicked. They rushed Wood to the hospital, told the press she was exhausted, and kept her there for 36 hours until the noise died down. Then, they sent her right back to finish her breakdown scene. The whole thing was swept under the rug. Tensions weren't just off-screen. On June 2, 1955, during a rehearsal at the planetarium, Sal Mineo saw Natalie kissing James Dean behind a curtain. He lost it, through a metal reflector. It clipped Dean's ear. Dean lunged at him. The grip chief logged it as a physical fight, and the whole stage got shut down for the day. It cost the studio over $8,000. Crew members remembered Dean teasing Mineo, calling him a kid. Mineo, deeply attached, called Dean his only real friend. That emotional mess bled into the scene they shot next, Plato's locker confession. That tension you see on screen? It wasn't acting. Then there was the alcohol. Natalie was still underage, but she later said Nicholas Ray gave her scotch and 7 to calm her down before filming the mansion scenes. She was 16. The law was clear. No drinking, no late-night shoots. But one call sheet shows her filming past 2 a.m. on June 8th. A compliance officer raised a red flag, but the studio head scribbled a note across the memo. Essential to picture, ignore. And that was that. Today, there would be a dozen lawsuits. Back then, it just vanished into a filing cabinet. Some things couldn't be hidden, though. Plato's obsession with Jim was always more than friendship. On March 22nd, the Production Code Office warned Warner Brothers not to imply anything gay. Ray didn't care. He told Mineo to tape a photo of Alan Ladd inside Plato's locker. He told him to look at Dean the way Dean looked at Natalie. In the end, the censors allowed it, but only because Plato would die. That was the compromise. 7 bullets, written into the final script in April. It was one of Hollywood's first queer teen characters, and they killed him to make the censors happy. When Rebel Without a Cause finally hit theaters in October, Dean got all the praise. Natalie didn't. Fans called her Hollywood's Lolita. A magazine poll showed nearly 40% of readers thought she was a bad role model. The press kept connecting her screen role to the motel rumors. Her career took a hit. From 6 films in 2 years, she dropped to just 2. What made her famous also boxed her in. Just like Judy, the character she played, she was fighting to be taken seriously. And the world just wouldn't let her. Between minutes 24 and 28, the film throws down 2 of its wildest moments: the knife fight in Griffith Park and the deadly Chickie Run. That's when the censors lost it. On March 2, 1955, the British Board of Film Censors completely rejected the movie. They said it could be damaging and harmful to teenagers. Warner Brothers tried again. They cut 30 moments, every flash of the knife, Jim kicking the desk, even Judy's scream. Still, the BBFC wouldn't budge. They slapped an X rating on it, banning anyone under 16. They called what was left revolting hooliganism. American city boards saw that and copied it. They banned unaccompanied minors and accused the movie of glorifying teenage rebellion. All those cuts turned what was supposed to be 4 minutes into just 90 seconds in some places. In earlier drafts, Plato didn't just seem fond of Jim. He said it out loud. He whispered things like, "I've never felt this way about another guy," and even imagined them getting a place together. But the Catholic Legion of Decency didn't like that. They said the script had overt homosexual suggestion and threatened a boycott. Warner panicked. They rewrote the lines in May 1954, replacing them with vague mentions of family. But director Nicholas Ray didn't give up. He found other ways to say it without words. There's Plato hugging Jim's coat, those quiet looks, and the planetarium scene. It's all there, if you know what to watch for. Years later, actor Sal Mineo said he played Plato as completely in love. Ray even told him to look at Jim like a puppy at its master. That part stayed in untouched. By the next year, the panic reached Congress. On March 28, 1956, the Senate Subcommittee on Juvenile Delinquency called out Rebel Without a Cause by name. They said Hollywood was using violence to make money and warned that the movie might hurt teens more than it helped. Witnesses stood in front of the Senate, quoting the knife fight word for word. They said Jim's defiance of parents and police could turn kids against authority. Ray didn't testify, but he wrote to a friend saying the politicians were chasing headlines, not answers. That letter got picked up in the trades and kept the movie in the news. Even though Congress didn't ban the film, their spotlight pushed local boards to tighten restrictions well into 1957. There's one rumor that just wouldn't die. People started saying the filmmakers hurt real chickens during the Chickie Run scene. But it wasn't true. The word chicken was just slang for coward, and there were no actual birds involved. Studio call sheets from the day of the shoot list only drivers and stunt teams. No animal wranglers. Turner Classic Movies backs that up. They say it was all done with empty cars and clever camera tricks. But the rumor stuck around anyway, feeding the outrage already surrounding the film. Even after cutting everything the British board wanted, Warner still couldn't get the film into UK theaters. The board finally gave it an X certificate on November 3, 1955. But they had one more demand. The ending had to be softened. They deleted 5 close-ups of Plato's lifeless face and a long final crane shot. That cut nearly 4 minutes from the British version. Some towns still refused to screen it. In cities like Coventry and Glasgow, theater owners worried it would spark teen riots. They didn't show it until the summer of 1956. Newspapers hyped the delay with headlines like "Film for Adults Only," "Youth Banned," and ran photos of teens waiting in lines at midnight. All that chaos made Rebel one of the most fought-over films of the decade. Sal Mineo's own story ended with real violence. On the night of February 12, 1976, he parked his car behind his apartment in West Hollywood. Someone stabbed him once in the chest. He collapsed and died within minutes. His watch and cash weren't touched, so robbery didn't seem likely. Later, an 18-year-old pizza delivery guy bragged about the killing. Turns out, he was already on a robbery spree. He got 50 years, but was paroled in 1990. Because Mineo's character Plato was seen as gay, some believed the attack was revenge, maybe a hate crime. There was no proof. Still, the idea lived on, especially when people noticed that Mineo died exactly 7,410 days after the film premiered. That's 20 years, 4 months, and 18 days. For decades, fans whispered about a missing reel, something that was supposed to happen around the 28-minute mark. They said it showed Jim and Judy in a full-on embrace, something too racy for the production code. No one's ever found that footage, but records show director Ray shot a scene called Sequence D2 on April 11, 1955. When the studio saw it, they told him to destroy it. There was also a deleted moment where Jim drunkenly mocked a parked Jeep. Ray thought it mattered, but it was cut for being too emotionally provocative. In 2006, the Film Society of Lincoln Center asked Warner Brothers to release anything left from those scenes, adding to the mystery. Some believe the missing embrace would explain the odd timing gap between Ray's work print and the final cut. People on set noticed that Ray was acting strange during editing. Jim Backus, who played Jim's dad, said the director seemed wired and sleepless. That got people talking about drug use, but nothing was ever confirmed. What's certain is that Warner Brothers stepped in fast. They chopped Ray's 111-minute version down to 98 minutes. They removed a knife fight set to jazz music and a shot of Jim's father in a frilly apron. Studio heads thought both went too far. They also changed the film from black and white to Warner color, which cost $500,000 and forced Ray to redo all the lighting. The sound editor later said he was ordered to sanitize anything that hinted at homosexuality, especially Plato's lines. The version that hit theaters came out just weeks after Dean died in that car crash. Whatever Ray wanted, his original vision, is probably gone for good. Then came the strange resurrection. On November 6, 2019, a company called Magic City Films announced they were casting James Dean in a new movie, a Vietnam War drama. The twist? Dean had been dead since 1955. They planned to recreate him with CGI, using thousands of photos and voice impersonators. Almost immediately, backlash exploded. Actor Chris Evans called it awful, and the hashtag #NotMyJamesDean blew up with over 40,000 tweets in one day. Critics called it digital necromancy. The Screen Actors Guild warned about legal gray areas. Dean's estate could approve it, but who would get paid? The project lost support and quietly disappeared by March 2021. Its IMDb page now says the chance of release is basically zero. But the mess left a mark. Hollywood started pushing for new contract rules to protect the images of actors after they die.